everyone, welcome to the Route Consultant Weekly Webinar. For those of you who are here for the first time, my name is Josh Gregory. I am the Vice President of Education here at Route Consultant. If you aren't familiar with us, our team ran hundreds of routes across the country, both P&D and line haul, and today we're here to help both current contractors that are trying to find efficiencies and additional profitability in their business, and new buyers as they're looking to get into the space for the first time. For all of our regular attendees, welcome back. And again, whether you're brand new to the space or you've been here for years, we want this to continue to be a place where you can come, learn, ask questions about what's going on, and make sure we're all on the same page. Now, before I go too much farther, I do have a quick disclaimer to read, as I do every week. So Route Consultant is not endorsed by and is not recommended by Federal Express Corporation, FedEx Ground, or Amazon. Route Consultant is not sponsored by, is not approved by, is not associated with, and has no connection whatsoever with Federal Express Corporation, FedEx Ground, or Amazon. So all that to say, format-wise, if you haven't been on one of these, what we're going to do is we're going to go over some really important announcements and updates, and then we're going to come back and I'll go over upcoming events and listings, and then at the end of that, we will have a pure open Q&A. So whether it's something that we talk about today or anything that you have questions on, we're going to be here, my co-host and I, to answer all of those. Just a request of all of you is, if you want your questions addressed, put it in the little Q&A button at the bottom of the window. If you put it in the raise your hand or the chat, I might miss it. So if you want your questions answered, put it in that Q&A. And you can type those in at any point, but just know that we won't get to them until the end when we get to the Q&A section. Now, for today, like I said, there's some really important things I wanted to talk about, some really exciting announcements. And the first, I'll go ahead and jump in on a little bit, because the first announcement is that actually Route Consultant is going to be partnering with GroundCloud to create a platform and a dashboard for the RCPA fuel card that's going to integrate with the GroundCloud infrastructure to provide some really powerful real-time analytics so that you can understand at a glance where you're saving money on fuel, which of your vehicles are trending poorly on fuel, so much more than that, but that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg there. And then you combine that with all the data and analytics you're used to on the GroundCloud side to really understand where you can focus your time and energy as an owner to optimize those profits. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but the other thing that we really want to hit on is the big announcements in the FedEx space, which is that all the VEDR devices have to be enhanced to include machine vision and AI. There's a lot that goes along with this. I've seen all kinds of questions on social media these past couple of weeks between contractors. So we wanted to use this as a place to talk about it all and to hopefully help get everybody on the same page before that deadline comes up. So my co-host today is someone who is very qualified to talk through all of this, because today we have David Leland on. And if you haven't met David before, he's the CEO and founder of GroundCloud. So he is in the weeds on all of this as much as you all are, and will continue to be over the next couple of months. So David, I see you there. Why don't you go ahead and say hello to everybody?
Hey, what's up, everyone? You guys know that I love you guys, respect you guys all. I've been there where you guys are, and so our mission absolutely remains that that we will be successful if and only if we make you guys successful. So that is our continued passion. That's what we're all about.
Yeah, and I kind of said a couple of topics that we're going to talk about, but just quickly, David, if you just want to give just a brief overview of who GroundCloud and you are, for people who may not have ever worked with you guys before.
Yeah, you bet. So what happened is in 2015, early 2016, basically I'm standing up to be a service provider myself. And I guess a bit of the difference is I come from a tech background. I'm a geek through and through. And so basically when I got there, I could not believe the lack of tech solutions and basically no vendors whatsoever seemed to be paying attention at all to FedEx Ground service providers or even gave a crap about any of them. So when I saw that and my friends in the terminal, when I started noticing all of the countless pain points that everyone shared, from route optimization to timekeeping to trip inspections and MMR, all these things that were just compliance stuff and safety stuff and operations stuff, that I went to them and I said, what if there was an all-in-one system that did all of these things together for a very, a low monthly subscription. And it's pretty funny because those folks in the terminal, they basically said, Dave, if you're not full of bleep, get the hell out of here and go build that. And we desperately need that. So that's what happened. Did a bit of a pivot, and we built this company completely for FedEx Ground service providers. That's not all that we do, but that's absolutely our heart and soul. That's where we started. And it's just been our absolute obsession to provide the best technology and the best customer support that anyone has ever received. So that's why we have a completely in-house, a large team of all GroundCloud in-house employees that are all technicians that do tech support. We have a proven track record that when you pick up the phone to call us for support, you're going to get less than a 30-second hold time. Usually you get through instantly, but our average is well under 30 seconds. It's funny, I hate call centers. A buddy of mine owns a call center company, and he said that's just unbelievable metrics in terms of what we do. But I've always known, as even though I'm a geek, we could design, if we design the best tech system on planet Earth, but if nobody can use it, it's worthless. So that's why it's so critical, in my view, that we provide absolute top level customer support. So, and that's why, we've really integrated more than just, really these days, it's not that hard to do just a little bit of putting dots on a map. We're so much more than that. From the very beginning, I created GroundCloud to move the needle in safety, even though that has not been what everyone has been pounding on our doors saying, please help us with more safety. There's a few of you that are, but really the reason why it's personal for me, my wife and I were cycling together, and she was hit from behind, car doing 60 miles an hour. I thought I was watching her die when she was airlifted out. And it was because it was a driver that was distracted by one of these. So that's why when we put out our system, I made the decision that we weren't going to require it, but we were going to really heavily promote tablets that are mounted to the dashboards, because when you put a device like a handheld device and say, hey, driver, navigate from this, but don't hold it in your hand, it doesn't matter. You tell them, don't do this. What do? They do this all day long, right? Because we're in big step vans, et cetera, where they just can't see a phone or a scanner that's mounted 3 feet away, right? So anyway, what's really cool is that we've done everything, right? So we, from qual cert to, and I hired the very best people. We create all of our own content for both proactive safety training and reactive coaching. We pioneered that. We've pioneered so many things in our industry that, and you know what? We welcome the competition. It's our competitors, they see what we're doing, they try to emulate it, but there's copying is it's the highest form of flattery, but they never quite get there. So
yeah. I appreciate that, David, because I think people may have come into contact with GroundCloud in a couple of ways, or maybe one way, and maybe just route optimization. But I think you're right. There's so much more that you all do and are capable of doing, and we're going to be talking about a few of those things today because it's really important for everybody. But it's always helpful for me when I hear your story, because I think that's what's important for a lot of people, is that you kind of started with, I'm approaching the contractor community first, and I'm trying to solve the problems you all are dealing with, because that's where I started and realized that these problems are something that your skill set enables you to solve. And so you went out and built it. And so, so I always like hearing that story and knowing that FedEx definitely was not capable of building something of the same type at the time or now.
Yeah, and I'm really proud of something else that, literally since we launched, we got to work in basically the summer of 2016, and then we got our local service providers up and running, and already, even though it was such a narrower feature set than what we have now, but even then, when we launched in July of 2017, for them, they were already saying we had completely changed and incredibly optimized or improved their business.
Yeah.
The first thing we did was that we were able to get new drivers onboarding, which used to take 6 to 8 weeks to get them really productive. And, we changed that to a matter of days, because no longer did they have to memorize areas and everything, all of the attributes about their stops. And conversely, what we did is we said, hey, focus on safety. Focus on safety. Use that massive productivity jump or the decrease in time that it takes to onboard a new driver now and get them productive and focus on safety. So, and that's something that I'm super proud of, and I'll share that a bit more on what we've been able to do there.
Yeah. There's the safety conversation is not ended, is what I would say. That it is an ongoing conversation, and we will see more of that on the technology side in just a second. Before
Absolutely.
we get to that, though, yeah, the other part is what I talked about first. So, we've worked together over the years in a bunch of different ways. So, what's exciting for you about this new partnership we have going on between RCPA and GroundCloud?
Yeah, you bet. So, what we were really impressed with the incredible discounts that Route Consultant was able to get and negotiate for service providers. So, I mean, it's funny, like as a year and a half ago, we released our own fuel card. We had no idea that Route Consultant was going to do that as well. And then, after, we had a number of folks come on board, but what we saw is that bottom line is, hey, this wasn't something that we were doing, as a mad scheme to make a bunch of money. It's just, we are all about, I mean, one of our big initiatives is metrics and analytics, right? This is because the only opportunity for service providers to make money is in operations.
Yep.
Compliance, if you fail compliance, that'll kill you. That's an existential threat,
Yeah.
as is safety, right? If you blow it on safety, that is another existential threat. So that's why compliance and safety are top tiers. It's three legs of the stool. And we are the only system that equally handles everything integrated together because we have to. But then on the operations side, this is where our focus has been as of late, to really see, where can we deliver those metrics and analytics to say, here's how you can optimize your business. And because if we get you to optimal efficiency, that gets you simultaneously to optimal profitability.
That's right. Yeah. And we share the same vision there. It's what can we do to help you save, cost and improve your profitability in the easiest, simplest ways we can. And if you haven't seen the RCPA fuel card, don't know what we're talking about, it is a free fuel card. It gives you a bunch of discounts on unleaded, on diesel. It's usable at any pump that takes MasterCard. And so it should be usable anywhere. And you already have some detailed reporting that we have. And this is just the next level of kind of exponentially increasing the power of what's possible and from a dashboard perspective and integrating it in one place. And that is always the goal, is how can we save you time? How can we save you money? And how can we find ways for you as an entrepreneur and an owner to focus your energy in the right places to make the most money and be as healthy as you can? And so that is something, if you have questions on any of that, on what that platform looks like or what this integration is going to look like, you can reach out to our team, reach out to David. We've got plenty of ways you can contact us. We can put that in the chat. So we'll come back to that. We can answer any questions on that later, but I wanted to talk about that first. And then the next thing that I want to make sure we're talking about here is this MVAI VEDR rollout. So what is this rollout, David? And can you kind of give us an overview of what you are seeing right now in the community as this has rolled out?
Right. Well, understandably, of course, there's a ton of questions going around. There's a lot of confusion. It's really helpful. Not some of our competitors are going around saying that, hey, GroundCloud's no longer a VEDR vendor. I mean, it's like, how stupid can you be? You go to MyGroundBiz and there we are, right there. It is true that several vendors have been delisted. So namely Smart Witness and Smart Drive. Those are no longer, as FedEx calls it, qualified vendors. So that means they're no longer there. They're no longer on the playing field. So, but what I would want to say right away is that our system, while GroundCloud, it's better that GroundCloud is not a camera manufacturer, because we actually have the luxury of integrating the best technology from whomever. So, initially when we first started, we were getting hardware from Smart Witness, but then we also have added onto that from an American company, an MIT startup. Well, they're much more than a startup. They've been around for a number of years, but they were an MIT offshoot called Waylands. So, and they've developed some of the, in truly amazing technology. But really what's behind all of this is obviously FedEx is deeply concerned about safety, and it's understandable. It's their name on the side of the truck. They're the ones that are covering the insurance for service providers, and and a lot of times, and that was obviously the impetus for the original VEDR standard, is that if nothing else, it's like there's a recording of what happened, right? Because as you guys could imagine, there have been previous to that, there were a lot of times where there was an incident and it was mostly a nothing burger, but then there are some people out there in the world that they see the name FedEx on the side of the truck and they see, aha, there's big deep pockets there. Let me call my lawyer. My neck is really starting to suddenly hurt, and so at least that's what. Understandably, there was a lot of concern and about when the initial VEDR standard was put out, but really, I think that was the big part of it, is just to have a recording of what's happening. So now that that part is done, and the first wave of devices have gone out, which are just and the way that FedEx had defined the system, and let's be clear, it's their playing field, so it's their rules. And they define how things need to operate on those. But initially, the way that they had the cameras, while they are continuously recording, they are not, and I have to emphasize this, at least with us, we are not continuously watching your drivers whatsoever. I mean, that would be incredibly expensive to have, someone, continuously watching everybody. That's not how it works. So the way that they defined how the system worked was that there would be a G-force trigger. In other words, whenever the driver did some kind of like a hard braking or hard turning, something of that nature, or there's some kind of an impact, then, even though the camera's always recording, what they had defined is that trigger would then send a clip of 20-second long to us effectively, or whoever your VEDR vendor is, and and they defined it had to be reviewed and then scored. So and then in that time, they would then look to see, is the driver operating in a safe manner or not? For example, is he or she wearing their seatbelt? Are they distracted by a device in their hand? That sort of thing. And then that went into your key indicators. So as everyone knows, the key indicators themselves have changed from when the VEDR standards first launched. Now, so about a year ago, they changed them all so that really the KIs are based upon driver behavior. So because obviously that's a critical thing. So FedEx nor us nor anyone else wants drivers getting hurt. So that's why they're emphasizing, hey, let's wear those seatbelts. Let's not be distracted. These are commercial motor vehicle drivers, these professional drivers. They shouldn't have personal handheld devices in their hands, et cetera, to be distracted. These are important things. So what's happened is that with the advancement of technology, really if you think about it, the triggering mechanism of G-force is really kind of a hit or miss thing, right? So it's dependent upon, and in fact, initially, we would get calls and complaints to say, hey, I was driving down the road and I was holding my phone in my hand and it didn't trigger anything. What's wrong with you people? You people have problems. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. That's not how FedEx defined the system. They defined it that there had to be a G-force trigger. So, so we would tell them, if you really want to do that, go look for a big pothole and hold the phone in your hand and then slam into that pothole. Now you're going to get an event that shows up like that. Okay, so that was the original triggering mechanism. But with the advancement of technology and what's called MV, that stands for machine vision, and artificial intelligence, really that's something that Now, with processing power on the cameras themselves, they are able to more quickly detect unsafe behavior. So what's happening now is that the cameras themselves can directly detect, hey, this driver is driving without a seatbelt. This driver is driving and is distracted by a device, or has fallen asleep, or because all of these things are detectable. And so I think what's important to know, that everyone should know, is that even when an unsafe behavior is detected, we are still giving that driver time to correct. So they get a verbal warning in the cab that says, for example, seatbelt, right? So if they're not wearing a seatbelt, well, and if they listen and they're like, oh yeah, okay, and they put the seatbelt on, that's not going to be an issue. That's just going to go away. It just, that just sort of stays between them and the camera. Nobody knows the better. It's what happened in Vegas stays in Vegas, and everyone's good. It's only those drivers that ignore that and continue to operate in an unsafe way. At that point, if they continue past a certain threshold of time, even after they've been verbally warned about the unsafe behavior, at that point, will the system then send a clip up to us? And in our case, we still have human beings take a look at that, because we're not, I mean, the last thing that we will ever want to do is, quote, accuse or make a false accusation. So what we're doing is we're verifying, just being triply sure that, in fact, this driver did not have a seatbelt on. So, and to that point, it's going to be helpful for example, if you have just gray seatbelts and the driver's wearing gray, it's going to be tough for that camera to always detect that. So that's going to get annoying. So a quick, easy fix for that would be to put some sleeves on there that are, like a blaze orange or something like that. That way, it's dead simple for the camera to pick it up, and those false alerts will stop. So, but really, it's also important to note that the key indicators themselves are not changing. The only thing that is changed, so it's still the same driver behaviors that have always been. So nothing changes there. The only thing that is changing is the trigger mechanism that is changing from a G-force trigger, which has been the standard from inception until all the way through the end of September. But then come October 1st, the contracting standard states that you must have approved AI-capable VEDR devices in your Schedule B vehicles, and that's when it will shift to that initial point of doing the trigger based upon the AI detection versus G-force triggers. So the big benefit to transitioning now is that you can basically, so I'll say this a couple things. I would say, do not be that guy or that gal that waits until the last minute, the last week of September to place your order, because I expect there's going to be a bit of a mad dash towards the end for those procrastinators, and I suspect FedEx is going to be pretty hardcore on this. They're going to, if they think that you haven't updated your vehicles or they're not compliant, they're not going to let you roll. So take that seriously. We again heavily advise to get the tech in now if you need it, and then you can get used to it. So we're going to be, for those that request it, we're going to enable some of those things so that your drivers can basically get used to it now before it counts, right? So I would highly advise doing that. And by the way, if anyone has, let's say they bought Smart Witness camera hardware from Smart Witness, we can directly support those today. In other words, you can transition those units into your GroundCloud portal, or even if you've never been a customer of ours, we can transition those into our portal today. And then as you order the new AI cameras from us, you'll already have been used to the GroundCloud portal, which is excellent, you'll find. And then, it'll just make the overall transition so much more smooth. So I would highly recommend that.
Yeah. And I think that's really important to emphasize is that October 1st is the deadline. So you've got essentially 4 months. And like David's saying, the key, the ideal for you is to do it now because you're going to have some driver complaints. You're going to have some kinks to work out, like the seatbelt, like he's talking about, that maybe isn't triggering right. So you've got a driver that's annoyed because the camera's telling him to put a seatbelt on and it's on. So it's much better to work out these kinks over the next few months. One, because they don't count yet. The AI doesn't count yet for your KIs. But two, if you wait till October, then not only is it you kind of doing it with everybody else, but we're headed towards peak at that point. You've got a lot of other things to worry about. You don't want that to be something that you're still trying to solve. So yes, you've got 4 months, but ideally you're doing it now. And one other thing to add to on the key indicators, it is the same four. They are actually adding one more that's just, is the camera obstructed? And there wasn't in there as much from before, but it is now because AI isn't going to work if it can't see properly. So I think it's camera obstruction / suboptimal viewing. So you do have to make sure that the camera is facing your driver and isn't obstructed. And that is an actual key indicator this time. Otherwise, the AI doesn't work. So any driver that's trying to still get away with moving the camera slightly so it doesn't see them, which they shouldn't be doing, but it's definitely not going to fly in the new key indicators.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great points. Thanks for pointing that out. What I will say though is that our flagship camera, the Air 2, what I just want to get, it's really cool in the sense that it's a single unit and installation could not be easier. You do not need professional installation for these things. And I need to emphasize that. There's a lot of people that are thinking, oh man, now I got to pay $150 a truck also and another $150 for installation. No, you don't. You slap this thing on the windshield and you route one cable over to the OBD port and you click it in and you are done. And it's literally that simple. What's also super cool is that one integrated unit, the driver-facing camera, is contained, it's fixed. So they cannot move the camera off of themselves. So obviously what they could do is they could, if they want to do, they could stick a door tag over the thing and obstruct it. But our system will alert on that quickly to let you know. So you can get a hold of that driver and say, hey, take that thing off or you're out of here. So yeah, that's an important thing. Also, real quick on what's so cool about how these devices connect to the OBD port. So these cameras from Wayland's here that we're using, they also have the ability to read OBD data. And now remember what we're talking about, though, that those business indicators and analytics, right? The business intelligence. Think of what cool things we can do with that. The first thing that we are going to do, and this is going to be basically provided at no extra cost to everyone that has our VEDR units, whether you're subscribing to the rest of our platform or not, you will get this. So the first thing we're going to support is the odometer off of there. And think of how cool that will be now that we can read directly from the vehicle the true odometer all the time. And so, for example, our MMRs, your monthly maintenance records now, that in the past, you had to put in mileage on there, but in the past that was dependent upon drivers putting in the correct value in a pre-trip inspection, which sounds great, except when drivers are like, bleep you, I'm going to put in 666 or just some, bogus value. It happens all the time. Yeah. You guys know it. And we know it. So again, we are taking that out of the driver's hands and making it automated. So all of those values will be read. Now that's just the start. There's all kinds of additional interesting data that we are going to be supporting. For example, just engine start and stop. Engine idle time. That's a request that we have gotten forever, and I've wanted to do it from day one, but obviously we don't have 10 billion developers, so we can only do so much at a time. But finally, we're addressing it, what I've always wanted to do, so that we will be able to provide, down to the driver level, hey, how much are they idling? Are they truly shutting the vehicle down at the stops like they're supposed to? Are they, so there's a million different safety things. And then, oh my goodness, I mean, just bringing it back to the fuel card now with all of that data, we are going to be providing a means that you're going to be able to literally compare drivers, two different drivers on the same route in the same vehicle and compare mileage. And I'm super stoked to, so really tracking mileage of vehicles. And we're also going to have an optional feature. This part might be part of Pro, but where we can actually do theft detection. So if we're tracking that fuel, I mean, just think about it. If we're constantly tracking the fuel, we've got how much you're buying with a fuel card, and you've got our VEDR, so we have the odometer and engine data. So now we can track constant fuel economy. If that fuel economy suddenly, gets cut in half, something happened here, right? And we'll bring that to your attention, and you can basically, it'll be very obvious if there's been any fuel theft, right? So that's been a concern, understandably, everybody has had about, hey, some driver calls up their girlfriend, hey, meet me over here, and fills up her car, and your step van. So that will put an end to that. So all of that to say is that when you get a GroundCloud VEDR, you are getting so much more than merely ticking the box of compliance. And I would really urge everyone to think about that. There's so many more benefits. Like, we are the only ones that have reactive coaching. Mm-hmm. And with all of our training and our safety and our reactive coaching, we were actually told, now, just to put this in context, in the world of safety, if you make a 1% improvement in costs due to safety, that's very meaningful. Like, safety peoples will be high-fiving each other with a 1% improvement. We were directly told that service providers on with GroundCloud have an improvement of 11% better. That is earth-shaking. That is absolutely incontrovertible proof that folks on our system are not just a little bit safer, they are massively safer. And I can't tell you how important this is, because this is an existential threat to your business. These are lives on the line. So I would urge you, you might be able to find a deal out there where you save $2 a month or something somewhere else. But what is it worth when you're getting all of this data where you can optimize your business, and we have the data to prove it, that those on our system using our hardware and our platform are massively safer than others.
Yeah. And we talk about it all the time, but there's a lot of things you can do with FedEx where you can have conversations that'll lead to some challenging situations, but safety, they will cancel your contract and walk you out the door
all day long.
Yeah. So it is not an afterthought. It's always got to be the most important thing that you're doing to protect the future of your business. And so a product like this, where it's the focus, needs to be something you don't kind of cheap out on, or don't go for the bare minimum. It's always about, what can I do to improve the business and maximize both my returns, but also the safety, where I'm minimizing the risk of the business over time. So lots to think about there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a quick note again on our Air 2 camera. It's funny because the retail price, which we hadn't put up there because it's brand new, is actually $500. But we have chosen to subsidize the living hell out of it to sell it for just $150, no contract. So that means, and now we do have the alternative, is that you can absolutely go for a zero upfront cost option. And then, and then you basically do a 36-month contract, and then you're paying $6 a month over time. So it's cheaper to buy it up front with no contract. But if you don't want to do that, you can still go with the contract for 36 months, pay nothing up front for it. Now, But what you will get, no matter what, so if you are a VEDR only customer, we have a new promotion for you. In addition to all of that, you will receive proactive safety training for free for all of your drivers. So that's a new benefit. That's something that comes with the base system. But if you are just using us for VEDR, there's another, and that's a value of $10 a month per driver. So even if you think about that, we are already offsetting, if you want to do the zero upfront cost option, which is 6, but here's the value of 10 that you get for that immediately. So you're coming out ahead. And then also there's some cool new functionality. It's like the processor's better in there. It's actually, so some people were initially thinking, oh, well, this Air 2, it's only 150. It must be not as good as the 4K, which is like 310. It's like, no, it's the opposite. It's just that we're choosing to massively subsidize it because we know that this is a massive, excuse my French, pain in the ass that in terms of expense, no one appreciates that. So we wanted to reduce that as little as possible. But this Air 2 camera also has an embedded battery in it. Now, what's really cool about that is 2 things. Number one, if there's a crash, and we've had this happen, where there's a bad crash, there's a fire, and it consumes the thing. And if in the crash with the old Smart Witness hardware, if power was cut, that's it. That camera was done. Now that's no longer the case. So now if there's a crash, there's the camera will still be able to operate for, I think it's like 30 minutes on the battery that's inside. So it will be able to upload that critical video so at least you can see what happened, right? And then, there's also a lot of other cool things about, again, that ease of installation and the quality of the video remains 4K, both front and driver facing. So you can get all of the details that you need, and the accuracy is also much better. And it has a faster processor in it. So the AI on the Air 2 is actually better than, even though the 4K is an absolutely approved device. For those of you that were on with us that got 4Ks, and I think we put out a lot of them. So good news for you is that you're ready to go. Those things are completely compliant. But for those that have non-compliant, meaning basically Smart Witness hardware or anything else from Smart Drive or many of the other vendors, you can get the Air 2. And again, we remain the only vendor that has a no contract option. So, I'm still very proud of that basically up until now, only now we're offering a contract for that zero upfront cost option. But aside from that, we've never had contracts. And so everyone on with GroundCloud is there by choice, not because they signed a contract and they're stuck. And I can't tell you how many times I have heard and from you service providers saying that they had made a mistake. They signed a long-term contract with another VEDR vendor and they're very disappointed. Their customer support is non-existent, et cetera, but they are stuck because they're in a contract. That will not happen with us. And again, we never ever take our customers for granted. And one of the ways that we do that is by, for the most part, not having contracts, right? So that we will never take them for granted to say, well, yeah, we can just blow them off because they're stuck with us anyway. No, that is not our attitude. And we can prove it because of the no contract.
Yeah. And that's always been something I've valued about you guys. It's very rare to see a company that can do that. And you guys just stand by it with your customer service. So we're going to get to Q&A in just a second. I have one last question for you before we get to that, David, which, we're going to be talking about all of this, everything that you guys are doing on the GroundCloud side and a ton more at the Expo in a couple of months. So you guys have been to this before. What's your favorite thing about the Expo for people who haven't gone before?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to say I'm OG. I was at the very first Route Consultant Expo and have been at every one. And we've been a huge believer and a huge sponsor of Route Consultant. And that's an easy question for me to answer. It's meeting with service providers because I was one. I forever will be one at heart. And it's just what motivates me, what's food for my soul is I mean, it never gets old when folks come up and tell us how much our platform has improved their lives, has improved their profitability, has improved, different aspects of their business. And I love hearing your ideas. I mean, everyone's got, great ideas about, hey, what should we work on next? What should we, and you know what, we want to do everything, but again, we only have our resources are only go so far. So we have to prioritize. We have to choose, what are we working on next? But I love that. I love being able to hear and see people and see the emotion in their eyes and how much it would mean to them if we did a certain new feature. So that's what sticks with me, and that's where I like to direct the dev team in terms of where are we going now.
Yeah. So for those of you who've never been before, we have our giant contractor expo. It's out in Dallas this year. It's the first week of August. I think it's August 1st through 3rd. I'm sure somebody will put a link in the chat for everybody, but it's completely free to attend. We provide all the food and the drinks and the content. And you guys have to just get out there and meet us there in Dallas. And then you'll get to meet folks like David on the GroundCloud team and tons of others, contractors from across the country, vendors from across the country. We're all coming together in one place to make sure that we are preparing, learning from each other so that we're ready for everything that's coming in the FedEx space and that we're all moving in the same, rowing in the same direction as much as we can. So that link's in the chat. Encourage everybody to register if you haven't already. We also, another couple of other upcoming events before we get to the Q&A. We have a happy hour in Salt Lake City in a few weeks, June 25th. So if you're in that part of the world, we'll be out there and you can, that's again, free to attend. We'll be out in your neck of the woods. You can meet with other contractors in the area, meet with our team. And then lastly, if you're a new buyer, if you're still trying to figure out if this is the right space for you, we do new investor summits every month. And there's a digital component, but there's also an in-person workshop at our office in Nashville. And the next one for that is June 27th. We actually have a special right now where if you haven't been to one of those and you're trying to go, it is a 60% discount for the next 4 days. So 4 days, it's one of our last ones before the expo. So if you're really trying to accelerate your journey, this is one of your last chances before August. We also have 2 new listings this week to go over. And while I'm going over these, if you have any more Q&A, I see some that I'll get to in just a second, but now's a good chance to type those in. So we have 2 new listings, one in Louisiana. It's a P&D listing, 14 routes, 725,000. It comes with 3 managers, and it's a really low mileage operation. So density and a lot of management to help if that's coming in as the first one for you out in Louisiana. And then the next one is line haul, 2 runs out of Central Florida at 1.2 million. This one also has 3 managers. So this is one where you've got a smaller set of runs and a lot of management. So you're kind of equipped to continue to grow if that is your desire in the line haul space. And again, Florida is always a hot market. So whether it's P&D or line haul, we've got those 2. Feel free to reach out if you have questions on either. So now, David, let's get into the questions. So a couple of these I see we've talked about, but I want to come back to. So we've got one where they ask if the camera tells you to fix something, do you have hard numbers on how long a driver has to fix that issue before it counts them?
Yeah, it's basically, approximately between 20 and 30 seconds. So, it would, and in that time, the driver would receive multiple verbal alerts or warnings. So it's not like the alert goes off and they got half a second to correct. No, it's reasonable.
Okay. And I think yes, it feels like we're going to get more alerts or we're going to get, more attention paid to these habits and a driver might be annoyed. But at the end of the day, these are things that we need them to fix. Like we don't want drivers to be texting while driving or not wearing a seatbelt because inevitably that's a big issue on the safety side because we all know with Schedule L, if you get into an accident, and, that's just going to continue to affect you over time in a way that it hasn't previously. So everything that we can do to prevent bad habits, bad behaviors that could lead to an accident is worth doing. So there's some annoyance there, but I think that the cost there is worth it.
I promise you, this is going to save lives. I am sad to say I've watched people die. And I mean, I used to watch some of those. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
It's just too emotionally painful. I mean, and that's just for me, much less the families involved here. And I've literally watched, drivers that were distracted, texting away and killed people. So it's something that, I'm very happy that with this technology, that is going to be massively reduced and hopefully eliminated.
Yeah, 100%. We got one here from Alex. So I know we talked about how easy it is to install. What if they have somebody else that they're changing from a VEDR perspective? Can they still, is it still that easy to kind of take it out of their vehicles and install
Yeah,
yours?
I mean, basically, a deinstallation. Well, I mean, if you've ever ripped something apart, like I have when I was a kid all the time, it's a lot easier to rip something out than it is to put it in and make it work. So really, in terms of taking it out, it's just removing the current camera. I mean, technically, you could probably even leave most of the wiring. You might want to disconnect it at the fuse box or wherever it's installed. But if it's cut correctly, yeah, I still just basically cutting it there and then cutting it wherever it connects to the vehicle. And the rest of the cabling, it's now sitting there free, but it's tucked away, so that's not really an issue. Then you slap in, and it's literally just a very firm, and the surface area is a little bit bigger on this one, so it's going to stick on there, that 3M adhesive. You clean up, you stick it on there, you route the one cable over to the OBD port, and that's it. You plug it in like almost like you're plugging your hair dryer into the wall out, and you're good to go.
This is kind of on the same line, this next question, but is there any kind of suggestion on the best place to put the camera in the vehicle?
Yes, we do have. I mean, you're going to want it to be, basically right in the center of the vehicle. So our driver-facing camera is more of a wide angle, so it's going to capture the entire cab. So it's not but we do have. Basically, we are optimizing the parameters for the step vans and box trucks that we're operating in. So we're the ones that are working on that. If in our system, if we see a camera that's been poorly positioned, we will let you know. We'll tell you about that, and help you get that corrected. So our crack support team, we even have members on our support team that have done a lot of installs themselves in the past. Again, that's not necessary now, but all that to say is that we've got some really skilled people that are available, and they're just a phone call away.
Perfect. Yeah, that's, even if it is easy, I imagine there's going to be a lot of those questions just because you want to make sure you do it right so that it's triggering correctly and that everybody knows that they've done the right thing so they don't get dinged for something that was triggered.
Yeah, but what we found is in 99% of cases, it's slap it on in the middle of the windshield. And I mean, obviously you want to have it below if there's any kind of a visor or tint. You don't want to have it in there. And on the forward facing, you want to have it so that it's still in the sweep of the wiper. So if it's raining, right, we want to be able to have that clear, because if it's not, then in heavy rain, it's just going to be a bunch of blurry raindrops.
Yeah.
So, but we include some documentation on that, and of course, we're here to answer all of your questions very quickly.
Perfect. Okay, next one here from John. So will the new OBD connection support the different types of ports? Do you know what that's referring to? It may be something we need more context on, John.
Oh, well, I mean,
got it. Yeah.
there's just two. There's, so line haul tractors have a different type of port, but there's just a very simple, very inexpensive adapter that you slap in there, and then it's good to go.
Gotcha. All right. Next one here is from Josephine. So do they get notified if the camera is disabled or unplugged for maintenance reasons? If it's like, is there an automatic notification there?
Well, I mean, I guess if the vehicle is shut down, well, a couple of things. Again, that camera has its own battery in there, and we can actually. What's cool about the new ones is we can remotely wake them up and pull footage like that, that was a big limitation of, say, the Smart Witness hardware, is that if that vehicle was off, we couldn't even retrieve video. But now with these, we can. So that's very cool. But what we continue to recommend is that if you're either lending it out to someone or you're using it for non-FedEx type of use, or it's in the shop, we have a very simple mechanism to just mark that as out of service. And, that's something that FedEx, again, this is one of those things that they have defined very precisely how that needs to work. So there's like, when you put a vehicle out of service, there's only a limited, I think there's like 4 or 5 different options of what it can be as FedEx has defined. So you just pick one of those, and then you pick how long you want it out of service for. So, what I would say is that when in doubt, extend that out, make it 2 weeks. You think it's going to take a week. Well, then if you make it 2 weeks, you're fine. And then just bring it back into service. You can always do that when the vehicle comes back in. But it's good to know, and it's important to know, that even if you forget and you put it out of service and that driver is actually going out, the device will still be recording. So, that's something that will always work unless you specifically pull the SD card out, which, don't do that. But unless you want to literally get all of the footage real quickly. So, but other than that, unless you pull the SD card out, that unit is going to be recording always. And also, we are also using it for a hardwired vehicle location. So that's another benefit of our system and our platform. You can immediately see where that driver, or where that vehicle is at all times. And now with the battery in it, yeah, so that's very cool. So having that location feature always.
Okay, we have time for just a few more questions. So we'll kind of go, lightning round. So, is there anything a driver can do to turn down the volumes if they won't hear the alert, like even whether it's intentional or user error?
No, there is not. So basically, we can do that from settings that we can push out over the air, but I think no. So to be very specific, no, the driver, there's no squelch or mute button to just or even there's no switch for them to turn it off.
Perfect. Now, you talked about, if a driver receives an alert, but then they fix it, it won't count as an event for FedEx.
That's
Will
correct.
the owner still get any kind of note that there were alerts that were sent out?
Yes, actually, I do believe that we will log that, but we're not going to send out like a high priority, because we envision, at least at first, as drivers are, let's just say, adapting to the new technology, and that that the machine is just going to be verifying that they're operating in a safe manner. So we anticipate, and that's what we've seen. We've done some beta testing and some trials, and with some service providers, and there's basically, in that first couple of weeks, yeah, drivers, they're hearing a lot of verbal cues, so shall we say, but they get used to it. They it's very effective. They start to realize that they really can't drive around without their seatbelt anymore. They really can't drive around with a device in their face anymore. So they do adapt to that, which is what everyone wants. We want them operating safely.
Now, you said earlier that the current 4K cameras are AI compatible.
Yes.
What do people have to do to get them updated?
We will do that automatically. So effectively, if we'll do it. We'll get those prepared ahead of time. But if folks want to, if they have 4Ks now and they want to start, if they want us to activate that, just they can let us know. And so that we're not doing that today, but sometime well before October 1st, we're going to give everyone the opportunity to enable that and start getting their drivers used to it, which I would obviously highly recommend, because like I said, there's first couple of weeks where you're going to see a lot of events. So why not get that over with before October 1st when the standard goes into effect, so that when the new KIs that start in, I'm sorry, the same KIs, but the new triggers that start October 1st, that you will pass with flying colors. Your drivers will already have been acclimated to the new AI.
And will those 4K, will they have the voice prompt as well, or is it they have to
Yes,
get
they do. Yep, they do.
perfect? Um, Now, is there an automatic notification if a driver unplugged the device while it was en route, or does it matter since it's still recording?
When you say unplug it, so I guess, I mean, if they were to like yank power out,
Yeah.
yeah, actually, I mean, the device will detect that because there's a battery in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we can detect that. And essentially it's like, hey, there's been a loss of power. We're on battery right now.
Yeah. So even though the driver may think that that got them out of being seen and watched, not only are they still being watched, but also you're
It's still
getting
being recorded for at least 30 minutes. So I mean, we will have a recording of the driver literally
yeah.
disconnecting the camera.
Yeah.
So or a thief or whatever, you know.
No,
So
right.
it's and that matters, right? So again, that battery backup is very meaningful.
Yep. Is there anything you recommend for the iPad mount and holder for FedEx trucks?
Yeah, we have right on our website at the GroundCloud web store, we've got, and just so everyone knows, this isn't a profit center for us. We literally sell these at cost,
Yeah.
but we have different options on there from let's just say the more value minded, you know, the ones that are maybe a little bit more plastic, and I mean they're not going to last 100 years, but you know they're inexpensive to get going. But we also have the frigid mounts. Those are the post-apocalyptic Mad Max of mounts that mount to the floor, and they're all metal. They're all handmade in it's either Arizona or New Mexico, where and they also have onboard cooling. So I mean, they literally were able to get with I mean with an optional electronic cooling pads, they have iPads working in the desert in the summer where it's 120 degrees in the shade, and these things are cooling enough that the iPads are still running. And you know, they lock down. So, like I said, now are they cheap? No, those are like I think they're like $250, but it's the last mount that you'll ever buy because this thing will, you know, it could. I'm pretty sure it could take a gorilla and a baseball bat would not take it down. So all that to say is, yeah, go to the GroundCloud web store, take a look at there, and we've got options from the value minded to the Mad Max minded.
Perfect. Okay, David, I think that's all we've got time for today. So just for everybody who's on here, again, there's some things to kind of be aware of and some compliance things that we all have to handle on the contractor side. But in a lot of ways, this is something that is needed and it provides a level of safety that will be better for us as contractors and for our drivers and everybody else on the road. And there's all kinds of exciting things that are going to come from it and that GroundCloud's working on that they're adding to this and that you'll see from partnerships like what we're doing with GroundCloud as well. So stay tuned. There's going to be more here, and there's going to be more that I'm sure FedEx will always continue to roll out. It's just a part of life in the contractor space. And so it's about rolling with the punches, staying on top of it, and being as successful as you can. So, David, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. And you know, just as a final thought, we were the first, and we now that we've also partnered with Descartes, we're not going anywhere. We are dedicated to this space. As you can see, there are vendors that are coming and going. You will never make a mistake going with GroundCloud. We are secure, we are the best, and we will continue to do that. And we will continue to focus on the success of our customers. That is our mission, and that is laser focused. That'll never change.
All right, David, thank you so much for being here, for providing all of your knowledge on all of this. And thanks everybody else who was on, whether you're watching live or you're watching on YouTube. Thanks for coming in, and hopefully we will see you all next week on the next webinar. Thanks, David.
Thanks, guys. Take care.